David and yourself, Pam?
Oh.
Yep, we can share it with you afterwards as well. But just as a background on Netstock, we're a global company. We've got operations in Australia, obviously looking after the Asia Pacific region, US, UK, Germany, and South Africa. We can obviously support and accommodate all different time zones in all those different territories. We've got about around 2,100 clients globally. That's just on the Netstock IA. We've actually got 2 solutions, but so we've probably got a fair bit more than that. We might have to update that one there. But sorry, that's just clicked into my head. Yeah, so probably around 3,000. But no, look, we have clients in Australia from the very big, Harvey Norman, 1.4 billion worth of inventory. Rebel Sport, they were actually Netstock Australia's first client. Still using us 12 years later, which is a great, I guess, testament to the product. But I think the easiness to use after it's all set up is very beneficial for them. But we have clients with as little as 500,000 inventory as well. So everybody gets the same software. We're cloud-based, and just really highlighting that we've got a lot of experience in all different shapes and sizes, businesses, different industries. Really, anyone with forecastable inventory, we can help with their pain points. So that's just a bit of background on our company. So usually proposed agenda today, we'll talk about your tiny bit about your business so Megan knows exactly what to show you in the software. We'll spend some time on some slides positioning the product, showing you a bit about the concepts and the outputs we deliver to our clients. Most of the time we spend in the software demo, and the goal is, as I said, is always to qualify the requirements for your business. We go at quite a pace to show you the breadth of the product, but please interrupt Megan at any point. We'll try to answer that question on the spot, or it might be later on in the demonstration. And as I said, I'm happy to meet with you at a later stage, and if Megan might book that in at the end of the session, where I can just take you through what we actually do in a project with our clients and also costs. We put a large emphasis on learning the solution. We have a huge learning and development team. I think that's helps us acquire our clients for many years and help them grow. So I could have a meeting with you later and talk about that. So is everybody happy with that agenda today?
Sure. Yeah, great.
Fantastic. I'll pass you over to Megan. We can get started.
Great.
Thanks for that, Brad. So we'll start by going through the pre-demo form that you filled out. Yeah. So thank you very much for getting that back to us. I just have a couple of questions to run through before we get into the session. So you mentioned that you have 3 warehouses at the moment. In terms of these distribution center or centers, are you selling directly out of those distribution centers as well as moving stock between warehouses, or are they purely for transferring stock?
No, so we distribute out of the 3 warehouses. So we distribute to local customers in Queensland and WA. It's obviously in Victoria, that's our main warehouse.
Yep. No problems. And in terms of the third-party manufacturer, are you supplying the raw materials for them?
No.
Okay, no problems.
No, so we're a distributor, not a manufacturer or anything like that.
Yeah, no problems. And so you mentioned seasonality across certain items for different events maybe. Was this seasonality across particular groups of items or just individual SKUs, say?
We definitely would have groups of items that have seasonality, but I would look at it at a SKU level, but I think you could easily categorize things to make it more meaningful for Netstock. I understand that helps the algorithm, so no problems.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll show you seasonality at both that granular level, but also at a group level.
Yeah.
And I remember you mentioned in the discovery call as well that you would like to look at event correction. Is that correct? So in terms of, say, some times in COVID where demand or supply was impacted and you wouldn't want to use that for future forecasting?
Yeah, I think that we definitely have to look at event correction at the moment. I mean, I would assume that all your customers are looking at event correction at the moment because of the last 12 months hasn't been the same as the previous. And this year's even more complex. Like we're starting to see a normality return to trading, but that may not last with interest rate rises and those kind of things. So I'm assuming that lots of people are doing event corrections at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Netstock, as I mentioned in the call, we do have event correction that has been implemented since then. I'll show you in the software where we're able to utilize that feature. So
Yeah,
that's all the questions. Oh, sorry, you go
sorry,
ahead.
Megan. I was just going to say, and this, we pick up on that reactivity and the change in supply performance quite quickly, especially if it's consistent over that, and that'll dictate levels of safety stock and things like that. So it's I think a lot of our clients, we found they were probably just ordering the wrong kind of items because they were maybe panic buying and things like that. And that's probably been the most consistent thing over the last 6 months is ordering the wrong stock items to because they were worried that they might run out and they've got a bit too much or something like that. So, but yeah, the event correction is pretty handy, especially if you don't want to change a number of SKUs or whatnot.
Yeah, and I get that, but I think the in this industry, because it's food packaging, so we've had that change over the last, through COVID and even through last year, where we've got that takeaway versus in-house dining, and those dynamics are certainly shifting. Of our base products, they're fairly consistent all year round. That's not an issue, but there's definitely items that have were for in-house dining that for 2 years didn't really sell, and now they're selling more. And even in the last 12 months, that profile's starting to change. So what I'd like to understand is how does, is that all about manual correction? And if it's about manual correction, you can't just look at the last few weeks. That doesn't work because there's seasonality within that. So you need,
you can
detailed analysis level though. So I'm sure we can go through it.
The team will. Yeah, I was going to say the team will help you with that, and you can input the exact dates or months that you wouldn't want, that you want to remove in terms of the forecasting for the future. But I'll show you where we can do that. Yep.
Sure. Thank you. I read a typo in that thing too. We're in AUD, not USD. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you for confirming.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. We were going to confirm anyway, so thank you for that. So I'll start by quickly positioning Netstock, what we do and what we don't do. What we are is purely a planning tool. We give you the ability to model different inventory policies and show you the financial impact of targeting higher or lower fill rates. We'll generate ideal orders, telling you what to purchase or transfer and when. We'll track your performance against the models and project what happens to your inventory and purchasing into the future based on these various inputs. What we're not is a transactional system. We don't manage the physical product. We don't do picking or stock taking or anything of that manner. So from that form that you've filled in, we've mapped out your challenges as they are for you today. So you've mentioned that you would really like to focus in on the amount of time spent ordering. And then we are also looking at stock outs and excess stock. And forecasting accuracy wasn't on the sheet, so I just placed you around the middle. Would you say that's an accurate representation?
I think in the sense of we don't actually do any kind of forecasting, so it's hard to say. But what happens is it has to be about the middle because we do have excess inventory sitting there that we don't need, and we do have stock outs, but they're on often highly volatile, small volume items, which is that whole catch-22 of how much safety stock do I hold versus the sales performance. So it's a hard one because we're not actually doing much in terms of forward forecasting.
That makes a lot of sense. I'll be able to take that into consideration throughout the demo. And I'll also send you some information about that at the end as well. So these are the types of benefits our customers receive when using our solution. The first one's increased visibility. You'll get visibility over products that are on the critical path, ones that are moving and contributing within your business, and those that are not providing much value at all. So you'll have the relevant information you need in order to make informed decisions. It's also been designed to improve your fill rate, with every recommended order you place, driving you toward that target fill rate, leading to increased sales. Netstock will compute the optimum level of stock you need to hold in order to achieve that target fill rate, whilst reducing your overall inventory. The software has been designed to improve your replenishment efficiency by creating automated visual replenishment plans by supplier that are very easy to interact with and amend. And we often get feedback from customers that they've been able to significantly reduce the time taken to place orders and create their replenishment plans. And finally, by using a tournament-based algorithm system, we're able to help improve your forecasting accuracy. So if we take a moment to think, why do we hold inventory? If our vendors always delivered on time and in full, and we knew exactly how much we were going to sell, planning would be easy. We'd simply match supply and demand, and there'd be no reason for us to hold stock. The only thing forcing us to do so would be minimum order quantities, filling containers, or other constraints placed on us by the vendor. So we hold stock to cater for the risk that the vendor may deliver late or under deliver. And from the other side, we might sell more than we forecasted. Both of these scenarios risk our stock availability, leading to potential stockouts and lost sales. So what Netstock does for us is it measures these risks by item, by warehouse, and uses this as the key driver to determine the optimum level of stock you need to hold to support your chosen fill rates. The big question most businesses ask will be, how much money should we invest in our inventory? And if you look at that from a sales perspective, you want to be holding as much stock as possible so you don't run out of any product. Financially, you're usually looking to hold less stock. You want the excess stock down and the stock turns up. Management are usually looking to achieve a more robust system or better visibility, and operations are trying to find a balance between those different business functions. Netstock provides you with a platform to enter your business goals, what fill rate target you want to achieve, and what products you'll be stocking at each warehouse. It will then work out the amount of money required and the stock turn to support this. And you can model these different inputs, compare the various outputs to see the financial investment levels that you're happy to work towards. From the other side, it's always designed to cover that risk of your business. And risk has two main drivers: how reliably are we forecasting, and how good are the vendors at delivering on time and in full. The risk then gets multiplied by a number of different factors, such as the length of the lead time, and the longer the lead time, the more risk we have, as we can't respond to changes as quickly. And then how often are we reviewing and placing orders? If we review monthly, more risk than if we review weekly or daily. And then any constraints that are imposed on us by the vendor, such as MOQs, ordering in bundles, filling containers, it will all impact the risk. And once Netstock considers your constraints, it will automatically work out the right amount of money required to meet your goals and cover the risk of your business. And it ensures that every order you place will fall in line with this agreed plan. And if at any point you decide to up your fill rate target or change the products you're stocking, it will immediately become reflected in your replenishment plans. Netstock's a pure cloud product. We have a list of plug and play integrations with various leading ERP systems. And as soon as we load our connector, data will start flowing, and what I'll show you in the software will be made available. We'll continue to extract all the data required on a nightly basis, and you can always refresh on demand straight from the application itself. Being cloud-based, you can access Netstock on any browser, if that be Firefox, Safari, Edge, any device, tablet, desktop, laptop, smartphone, and it will tell you what to purchase from your external vendors or transfer from your DCs to keep your stock at the right levels. And you can review these orders in the software, make any amendments you like, press a button, and on demand, these orders will be sent back into Pronto. They'll be sitting there as a pending order with all the information you need, like cost, codes, supplier information, order date, due date, and you can make further changes in Pronto if you wish. Otherwise, you release it like you normally would through the approval process. Do you have any questions on that?
No, that makes sense.
Thanks for that. So I'll quickly take you through the timeline of events we'll go through in the software. We'll spend quite a bit of time on individual items. I'll go through forecasting, how the supplier delivery performance impacts the risk profiles, setting inventory policies on an item level, recommended replenishment plans, forecasting at a group level, and how we handle distribution requirements planning. And once we've understood everything on an item level, we'll raise it up and I'll show you how we model different inventory policies, how we track our performance against the models, and highlight any items we need to attend to. Then we have our replenishment summaries by vendor, as well as what happens to the inventory and purchasing into the future. So we'll move into the software now. And at any point, if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me. We do go through quite quickly. So as soon as you log into Netstock, you'll see a set of dashboards that look like this. And you'd be able to see each warehouse or DC on the drop down here in a global or national view. And each user can mark their own defaults and pin important locations. And you can also see that in the locations tab in the navigation pane here. And the default location will always come up first when you open the dashboard. So we'll start by going into an individual item here. And I'll explain the fundamentals and the basics of how we get the outputs that we do at the very lowest level on the item. So here on the left-hand side in the navigation pane, it will always tell us the last time the data was pulled from Pronto. So if we were live, that would say the 9th of Feb 2023. This is an old demo instance. So we have the 8th of August 2011, and it's in red. Tell us it's been over 24 hours since the last refresh. We'll pull all the relevant information out of Pronto, such as average cost, selling price, any metrics if you have them. So weight and volume would show here. We have your stock on hand, your preferred vendors, and then any categories or subcategories will be shown under this groups column. And you can use these groups to slice and dice the inventory. We'll extract lead time by item if you have that in Pronto. Otherwise, you can set it by supplier in Netstock, or we can calculate it for you based on historical purchase orders. We'll pull through any constraints that you may have. So here we have a minimum order quantity of 300, and we're ordering in bundles or pack sizes of 50. We'll extract all the sales history that you have for the item at each location. According to the sales history of this product, Netstock's chosen the demand type of no trend with seasonality. And if we want to see that forecasting in more detail, we can view that in this table here. In this case, we have 2 years of history in this table, as well as in our graph. And you can see here that Netstock runs a best pick tournament method with a variety of different algorithms. It finds the algorithm that best suits the sales history, in our case, no trend with seasonality, and it's used that algorithm to create this forecast into the future at each location. It will evaluate how we're tracking against the forecast on a daily basis. In this example, if you click on the month to date, you can see we're 29.4% of the way through our forecasted goods for the month. However, we're only 25.8% of the way through the current period. So if we continue to sell at the rate that we are, we're going to exceed this 511 by the end of the month. So we can amend or override forecasts at this low level, at the item by warehouse level, all the way up to a more group and company level. So maybe we know that we're going to be running a promotion in January. So we can choose to manually up that there. And then in March, we might be expecting a dip. So we can enter that in. And you'll see straight away, those changes we've made have been reflected in the graph. And those changes will show in the final forecast in our replenishment plan moving forward. But the computer forecast will always run along in the background there. Now we can select multiple periods here, and we can add or subtract to the forecast. We can drag the forecast up and down using the slider as well. So since we've been selling slightly more than we forecast, I'm going to drag the forecast up for the next 3 months. And when we click apply, what you'll see here is that those changes we've made have little frozen symbols under them. And that means next time the forecasting cycle runs, those changes won't be overridden. And if you look at the month to date, you can see that we're back on track. So 25.7% of the way through our forecasted goods for the month and 25.8% of the way through the current period. And if we continue to sell at the rate that we are, we're aiming for that 583. And then we recommend you capture a comment here to say why you made any of those manual adjustments. Do you have any questions on adjusting the forecast at an item level?
No, that's It's fairly straightforward.
Yep. So now we'll look at the forecasting page. Here you can interact with the forecast at a group level. So what we're looking at here is all my products history in the blue line, and the green line represents the future forecast for each of these items at this location. You can view these forecasts in cost price, selling price, margin, or units, and you can drill down to find a specific group of items using the filter up here. So say that we would like to look at items that we've manually adjusted. We can select items with frozen forecasts. We could select status to look at potential stock out items, or we could choose to look at a specific product group, say for one of those seasonal items. And we can click apply. And what we're looking at now is this one item group's history and future forecast, which we can then adjust at a total level. So maybe we have a Christmas promotion here and we want to enter that. And between May and July, we're expecting a bit of a dip, so we can pull that down. And when we click model, you'll see those changes that we've made are marked in green. And in the future forecast, you can see where we've raised the forecast up, as well as where we've brought it back down again here. And
So-
if you'd like to see, yep.
Megan, just to ask a question, obviously the product that you're looking at here was a product that was considered no trend. If it was a product that had been identified as historically seasonal, is the thought process is that these types of uplifts that you're manually putting in would already appear because of the historical trend?
Yeah, so these uplifts would be like you would be entering that in for something that is not seasonal. So if you say have a marketing promotion coming up that wouldn't be automatically picked up by the algorithm. Yeah, so Netstock will pick up on the seasonality. In the next section, I'll show you how that group seasonality will work. And I have another example as well that will give you a clear picture of how the seasonality can be picked up automatically.
If I could just add something there,
Yeah,
Megan, that
of course.
this would, if this product had underlying seasonality that the system had identified, that would already be reflected. You can see the there's some bumps in the history there, and there's some bumps going forward in the forecast as well. That's that sort of seasonality being reflected by the system. And so what Megan's done there is she's made an adjustment over and above that curve to those items, to this particular item for those periods. But Megan will cover.
How far back would Netstock look at, like, what is the data range? Is it 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
So Netstock can use as much data as you have available in Pronto. We generally say 3 years is the most relevant. However, with COVID, we might cut out that section and then go back a few more years to pick up on that seasonality. But Netstock can utilize as much data as you would like it to.
And that's just based on our data set that we're currently running with.
Correct. So if things are incorrect in Pronto, then Netstock will collect incorrect data.
Yeah, understood.
Would we, if we were to go ahead with Netstock, would somebody review some of our data, say if we looked at some of the data for the last 5 years to make sure it was relevant? That would be the only, you want some direction about, yeah, actually, my gut feel is 5 years ago, the business was very different. So would it actually be relevant versus, and then COVID kind of goes.
Yeah, maybe it's 2019 onwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the implementation and training process is going through with the account manager of your project, and they'll be going through, working through your goals and what you want to achieve with the software, setting up all the fields and making sure that the data is pure and providing the information that you want. So you'll definitely not be left out in the cold in terms of that. The team will definitely be ensuring that you have the best data available from what's in Pronto and any changes that need to be made to improve the process.
And the API key that you use with Pronto is a standard out of the box. We're not going to need any sort of development support on the Pronto side to develop the API connection. What does that look like?
So we have a integration with Pronto. I believe that those scripts have been written by a partner. Brad will go through that with you when he goes through the project, and he can explain any changes there, but I believe that it's just one of our regular integrations. We will definitely make a note to check on that so that Brad has all the information for you when you have a meeting with him.
And just so you're aware, we're about to upgrade to 760 XI Cloud.
Yep.
So that's the version, which I think is like 18 months, maybe 24 months old. So it's quite it's quite new. So yeah, just if you want to make a note of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I had that noted down from Pam's discovery call, but I'll also double check that Brad looks into that with the tech team so he has the most relevant information when you meet.
Sure, no problem.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that. So if we want to see even more detail, we can click on adjust items, and this brings up each individual product. So you can see here the SKU code, any groupings, categories, subcategories, and you can see the sales history as a graph, as well as the future forecast in the table here. And you can step your way through each of these items, and you could change each individual SKU to forecast as you move through the list. And we have this summary of any of those changes you made to the group of forecasts down here. And then if you prefer to work in Excel, you can always download all your forecasts into a CSV report, make further changes there, and then upload back into Netstock. So lots of ways you can manually adjust the forecast for your products. Do you have any other questions on that forecast to the group level?
I don't have any questions on the sales forecast. Will you take us through the inventory picture?
Yes. So the inventory picture will be mostly in projections. So I'll show you those projections. So pretty much this demo is working its way up to show you where the inputs come from to provide you that information. So all of the nitty gritty stuff will be at the end after we've gone through the inputs. So at the moment, when you're stocking out, are you taking back orders or you're losing the sale currently?
No back orders.
Yep.
But the disadvantage of taking the back order is you capture the sale, but then it increases your operating cost of service.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll show you how Netstock can assist you to plan based on the actual demand from the period you were stocked out, as opposed to the demand that was limited by a stock out, and therefore planning to avoid stock outs in future so you don't have that additional cost. So this item here, you can see in July, we were stocked out for 20 days. So in this history, you can see that we actually sold 768. We've asked Netstock to compensate for the 20 days that we're out of stock, and it's given us the adjusted number of 1,679. So that adjusted number is what we are going to plan with. So this adjusted number is what we are going to plan with for the future forecast, as opposed to the historic demand. And in terms of those one-off peaks or projects that you would want to not be included in future forecasts, so it's a similar idea to the example we just looked at. You can see here that this spike is not fitting with the rest of this trend. It's maybe a large project or a large one-off customer order. So Netstock's given us the adjusted number of 31 instead of 124. And so we're using that 31 to plan with for the future forecast, as opposed to the spike. And then all of this is set up in configurations. So you can turn this feature off. You can be lowly, moderately, or highly aggressive when it comes to replacing those sales peaks. And when I show you the seasonality as well, you'll be able to see that we can also use these configurations to have the level of aggression with seasonality, as well as seasonal group forecasting, which I'll show you soon.
Is that by item? That forecast?
So this configurations is for the entire instance. This isn't by item, but you can have overrides for particular items.
Okay, great.
So when you introduce a new product, I believe on your pre-demo form, you mentioned that sometimes the product will replace an older product, or you'll have a product that's going to sell in a similar way to an existing. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yep. So I'll show you here, we have a super session tab. And if we click on that, you can see the 503 is being replaced by the 502 in a ratio of 1:1. You can have as many products going into one in whichever ratios you like. We can link the products to be like for like in the instance that the previous one will continue to sell, and we're just introducing a new product we think will sell in a similar way. And if we look at the forecast, if we click hide sales history here, you'll see that this product only started to sell last month and a very small amount of this month. So if we use that history to plan with, we'd essentially have a flatline forecast. So by linking it to that 503 forecast, Netstock's picked up on the linear trend and the seasonality and used that as a baseline for our new products forecast. And then as the new product begins to sell, it will influence its own forecast more and more over time. So here you can see a very clear seasonality. And I believe the next section, is group seasonality. So I'll show you that. Let me just open up this example.
Can I just ask a question? And when you're adding in, say, you were accounting for the Christmas peak and you were saying, oh, can you do that like as a percentage instead of a hard key number? So could you say, oh, I think I'm going to sell 20% more, or you have to kind of put in the number?
I believe it's the number. Peter, do you know any different there?
All right, I forgot I was muted.
That's all good.
I think when you were inputting that number before, you were inputting a percentage where you were talking like 110 as in 110%.
Yeah, so I pulled it up to 114%. So yeah, I think the numbers, the plus and minus would be the numbers, and then the slider would be the percentage, I think.
The slider. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. There's a lot going on. Sorry, it's lots of tabs to find what I need.
Do you have any Pronto customers in Victoria that are currently using the product that we'd be able to visit?
I know that we do have customers using Pronto. Where they're located, I'm not sure, but we'll write that down to see if Brad can do some investigation for you there.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yep. So this is an example for how Netstock can take into account seasonality across a group of items. These groups will be pulled from Pronto, and you can have any groupings you like, such as brand or color, whatever you choose, and they can be shown in the groups pane here. That's where those groupings would be. So in this example, you can see we have a flat line future forecast here with the demand type of no trend, no seasonality. The reason the seasonality has not been detected is because this is a new item we've been selling for 11 months. So it hasn't had, you can see age 11, it hasn't had the chance to pick up on seasonality there. So if you look at this example, let me just log in. This is the same item now with seasonal group applied. So this is group seasonality, and this is the seasonal group demand type.
Okay.
And our future forecast is now taking into account the seasonality across this group of items. And clicking on the seasonal group tab, you can see a peak in March for the previous and upcoming year. And you can see that we are forecasting for product growth across all these items as well. So each time a new item is added to this group, Netstock automatically applies this seasonal profile to its forecast. And as I showed you before, these are in the configuration settings. You can change them or turn them off, and you can work on those goals with the team when you're going through implementation in terms of what's going to be best suited to your business model.
And sorry, Megan, Netstock actually chooses the profile, or you have to assign the profile, and like the seasonal line, I'm going to put the seasonal algorithm over it, or it says you flag it as a seasonal line and then it gets the algorithm. Yep.
So the algorithm is automatic. It will be influenced by reactivity or seasonality parameters in the configuration, but if it was to work to its own devices, it will choose the algorithm best suited. So that's what the best pick tournament method is. That's what its name is. So it's going through all of those algorithms to find the best one that fits the item. So you wouldn't need to input those. You can, yeah, like manually alter them by changing configurations, but otherwise it will be assigned.
Sorry, yeah, thanks.
You don't have to say sorry, that's fine. So if we go back to this item now, in the background, we're constantly measuring our forecast performance. So here, we can see the history on how we've been forecasting, how we've been selling, and the difference between those two numbers. If we look at this table here, you can see there's a lot going on. I'll get you just to look at these rows. So what we forecast, what we sold, and the variance between those two numbers. So as an example, in June, we forecast 923, we sold 501, meaning that we over forecast by 84%. And safety stock, it's only there to cater for late and under deliveries and when we under forecast. So as we've over forecast, Netstock has increased the safety stock, and that's why the forecast risk profile comes into play. And Netstock automatically uses this as a key input for our safety stock calculation. So we measure the forecast risk, and we do the same thing on the supply side. So we can see how well our vendors have been delivering. Have we had any early, late, or on-time deliveries? And then how well we've been supplied. So have we been supplied in full, short supplied, or oversupplied? And if we click on this table here, we have our purchase order history. We can see a list of who we ordered the products from, the order number, the date we made the order, the date it was expected to arrive, as opposed to the date it actually arrived into the warehouse, and then how many we ordered and how many we received. And then from this, we get our planning lead time. So we think we should be getting the item in 45 days, but it's actually more like 56. So it takes all of this into consideration and then creates a supply risk percentage against each vendor. And this helps us to determine the amount of stock we need to hold as a buffer to prevent stock out.